I just did something very extreme. I threw my entire financial independence plan out the window and did something much different. Hello everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to On Cash Flow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. So you might be wondering what happened. Well, when it comes to my financial independence plan, I originally made a video about how I plan on making my asset withdrawals this year. And what I did was I went against that completely. So my original plan was to take 3% of my portfolio this year as an asset withdrawal. But the way I was going to do that was in monthly withdrawals. So 12 withdrawals and within 1 calendar year. That would be 0.25% per month. 3% divided by 12 is 0.25%. So whatever my portfolio happened to be at that time, I would multiply that by 0.25%, and that is how much my asset withdrawal would be for that month. However, what I ended up doing, which is something completely different, was I took my entire asset withdrawal for the entire year up front. Yeah, so I ended up taking 3% in one withdrawal, and I'm gonna be using that to spend for the entire year. How much this ended up being? Well, at the time, it was $16,680. That's how much of an asset withdrawal I have to live off of for the entire year. And the reason my asset withdrawal was that much was that my investments were valued at the time of withdrawal $556,000. So that is just my index funds, my liquid net worth that's in my retirement accounts and within my investment accounts. That doesn't include any kind of cash or any kind of real estate or anything like that. That's just my liquid investments. Normally, if I would have taken that 0.25% withdrawal, I would have taken $556,000, multiplied it by 0.25%, and that would have been $1,390 for that month. However, as you can tell, I did something completely different, and I threw my financial independence plan pretty much out the window this year. By the way, really quick, for better context, have you seen my video about my asset withdrawal strategy for this year? If you haven't, I'll remind you to check it out at the end of this video. All right, but getting back to it, you might be wondering, why the heck did I do this? And I was thinking the same thing. I have a few justifications for why I chose to do this kind of asset withdrawal strategy instead of my original planned one. First off, savings accounts, they are paying very, very high amount of interest right now. So you're not losing out as much by having money in cash than you were like a few years ago when interest rates were close to 0%. Now I can get about 5% very easily. And actually, I'm not even putting it into a different account. Right now, I have my cash in my Empower personal cash account, and that has been paying 4.7%. And that has been very consistent for a long time, rather than some of these other banks that might be offering a little bit higher, but then they just go ahead and lower it after an introductory period. And then maybe you have to look for another bank account and you're doing all these transfers and stuff. I chose to just keep my asset withdrawal in my personal capital cash account because it's paying that consistent 4.7%. But there's another good reason. Well, one of my side hustles that I like to partake in is known as bank bonuses. I like to go after bank account bonuses. So every once in a while, banks will offer a bonus for you depositing a certain amount of money into their account. And now I have a good amount of funds that I can play with and get a few bank bonuses this year. So that's fun. For example, by the way, to show you that this is a pretty good little easy side hustle for me, in 2021, I earned $2,285 of interest. And in tax year 2022, I earned $3,907 of interest. Maybe I went a little overboard that year. My actual plan is to get around $2,400 per year in interest. So around $200 per month if you average it out over an entire year. Now beyond that, another reason why I made this split decision to make one withdrawal per year was that now I have a basis for how much I can make my annual budget, right? So I know exactly how much I'm withdrawing for the entire year. So now I can build my annual budget around that amount. Now, I'm not living on only just that $16,000. I do spend more than that, but I have a kind of barista-fi lifestyle where my investment withdrawals pay for only a portion of my lifestyle. Well, that portion of my lifestyle, now I know exactly how much I have to spend and to budget for the entire year. So to put this in perspective, my plan is to spend around $27,600 this year. That is around $2,300 per month. The asset withdrawal that I made for the year of $16,680 is about 60% of that budget. So that means that the other 40% of the budget is going to come from other sources, such as interest, my house hack income, and from my online YouTube business. Another reason why I chose to make this decision this year to only withdraw one per year is kind of to test it out, because I think that mentally it's easier for me to make one withdrawal per year rather than to make those monthly withdrawals. Because what happens is every time, which I did last year, when I go to make a monthly withdrawal, I have to look at the stock market, I have to calculate what my investments are at the time, and then I have to make the withdrawal. And there's that small amount of pain, right, of making that withdrawal, of selling off assets and taking money into cash. There's a small amount of pain, and I have to experience that small amount of pain 12 times per per year. Well, now what I had to do instead was I had to experience a larger amount of pain, but only once. So that's the plan, to only have that one withdrawal this year. So that is my kind of mental reasoning behind it. I think that it's mentally easier to take one withdrawal per year rather than 12 smaller withdrawals per year. Because now I don't have to check the stock market as often anymore, right? It doesn't matter exactly what it's doing on a day-to-day basis or even a monthly basis, because I'm not going to be making another withdrawal anytime soon. And then one more small reason why I'm justifying this decision was that, again, mentally, it just kind of feels good to have a little bit more cash right now. For whatever reason, I'm usually against holding a large amount of cash. But now that my lifestyle has changed a lot, my thoughts on cash have definitely changed a little bit. I see what many people are talking about, how having a large amount of cash does give them that mental break. And I'm kind of seeing that right now because my cash balance is a little bit on the high side now because of that asset withdrawal. And that just goes to show that when it comes to personal finance, when it comes to wealth building and investments, there is the optimal side, the mathematical optimal side, and there's also the psychological side. And those two have to be in balance, or else your financial plan is probably not going to work out. Now, really quick, guys, I put a lot of research and effort into this video, especially this one. I put a lot of heart into it. And if you're appreciating this video so far, please make sure you hit the like button on this video. It really does help me out, and I really do appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right, now we've talked about the positives of making that withdrawal one time per year and why I made that decision. However, I do want to mention some downsides, because every decision you make, there's going to be upside and there's going to be downside. So here are some of the downsides of my decision to make one withdrawal this year. The first downside is that I lose out on the power of reverse dollar cost averaging. So I might have actually got a better price per share by withdrawing it on a monthly basis, because the stock market, as it is volatile, it's going to have different times when it's this price, this price, this price, right? And by withdrawing once per month, I'm kind of smoothing that out and doing kind of a reverse dollar cost averaging. So I'm getting an average price of what it was over the course of that year. Whereas now, with only making one withdrawal this year, I'm only getting the share price of whatever it happened to be when I made that one withdrawal. So I'm losing out on that benefit. Of course, this also means that I'm losing out on any kind of potential stock market gains, right? Those shares that would have been left in there, right? I would have only made one withdrawal per month, and then the other shares would have stayed there until I happened to make that withdrawal. Those shares now are going to lose out on any kind of potential to increase. And perhaps it could be a large increase this year, perhaps it could be a small increase this year, or there could be a market downturn. We just don't know, right? You're never really going to know what's going to happen with the stock market in the short term. And so by taking out this investment withdrawal once per year, I am losing out on the potential upside of the stock market going up and those shares that I was going to take eventually going up in price because I already took them out. I hope that makes sense, but it's kind of like a word salad there. And then another downside is that by taking out this withdrawal one time and making a relatively large amount of a withdrawal, I am locking in any kind of tax gains or tax losses, depending on what my tax basis happen to be. So this is something that you definitely need to keep in mind. Now, a few years ago, I did reset my tax basis and paid 0% on my long-term capital gains because I just happened to be within that income frame. And so I'm not going to be suffering too much when it comes to, taxable income or anything like that. But that is something you do need to keep in mind when you're making a very large asset withdrawal. There are potentially going to be tax consequences. So you need to look and understand, is this going to be a short-term gain, a long-term gain, how much capital gains is it going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now that you know my big secret, I want to know from you in the comments below. What do you think about the frequency of asset withdrawals when it comes to retirement, early retirement, or financial independence? Do you think it's better to withdraw once per year, monthly, quarterly, or what is your plan? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say. And now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, if you haven't watched already, I want you to watch my other video where I explain my asset withdrawal strategy this year in more detail. And then you can see how I kind of messed up that strategy by doing this instead. Okay, that video is going to pop up on the screen. I'll put it in a link in the description below and the pinned comment below as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from uncashflow.com, and I hope to see you next time. By the way, I chose to just keep this money. It's kind of